Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Voice Thesis, a FutureSight deep dive into an industry or a thesis point that we are exploring right now, which is voice AI. And over the next hour, we'll share our perspective and insights from co-founding, building, and investing in B2B AI ventures. So we're welcome with three of our team members today. First of all, Alan Smith, which might be familiar names and face for some of you guys who have went to our other events. So Alan helps founders crave the shortest path to a venture scale business. And before FutureSight, he launched 27 products, built and exited an eight-figure company, sold more than 5 million books, and traveled the world barefoot. Sounds like a story. Next, we have Behrouz. Behrouz helps founders shape high conviction opportunities and translate ambiguity into focused product and execution path. And prior to FutureSight, he was a product leader and founder with decades of experience in system design, human-centered design, and product strategy. He's going to have such an insightful point of view on the topic today. It's exciting. And next, we have Pratna, who helps us find and assess founders to work with and help these founders build the right teams, establish governance, and access early capital for scalable growth. And before FutureSight, she was the managing director for Maple Leaf Angels, a GP for MLA 48 funds, and an active mentor and seed investor across North American tech ecosystem. Welcome, everyone. And I want to remind everyone that please post the questions in chat, and we will have a Q&A session at the end where we go over and answer your questions. Great. So, everyone, maybe I'll start with Alan. Can you give us an overview? What has changed in the landscape for voice AI in the last 12 to 24 months?
Well, thanks, Cindy. First, thanks for pumping our tires. I'm feeling like stoked after those intros. I'm like,
Yeah.
to be on the call with
I did not know the barefoot story, so we gotta
Need to know
figure
that.
out.
I didn't even know who I was talking to apparently. So I used to work with you guys every day, but now we hear these intros. It's pretty big. Okay, so market readiness, I think, is hugely changed to a year ago, right? Like a year ago, ChatGPT was still like had first launched their first voice agent, and they were stealing Scarlett Johansson's voice. And people were like, is this going to be a real thing? Like, I don't know, this seems like kind of like cheesy, but it was also like that was like the first touch. And between now and then, like it's completely differently, right? Like we're doing cold calls to try to sell some early stage products. And in a specific example, we're working in legal. Out of 100 cold calls, we got two AIs pick up the phone, right? That's 2%. That's not nothing at all. So the market readiness, not only to believe that solutions like this could work, but are actually buying them, is huge. The second is people are starting to understand that like voice is almost like a category. Like if you look at the market maps, like, you know, go to a new tab and look up voice agent market map, and you'll find the massive number of companies that have created like a full category of businesses. For a while, it was kind of like a feature. Like if you had a chat, you could add a voice chat to it as well. Now it's starting to become more of like a product shape. And then I think the last thing I would say is like, and this, probably leads, into something too, like we could talk about Behrouz, because we've been talking a lot about like, what does it sound like, right? Like when you pick up the phone with a voice agent, like, does it have a name, right? Like, is this like Ava, or is this like,
Yeah.
John, or is it like, is it just like, hey, I'm an AI and I'm trying to help you with whatever you need help with. Let's talk. And this difference between, are we really trying to replicate humans on the line, or are we trying to provide a voice interaction layer with everything?
I think it's
I
like,
think a really interesting question.
yeah, it's like that same initial reaction that like I could replace myself and send my AI avatar to sales calls, and you immediately realize, well, everybody's as smart as I am, and just one affect or just a little glitch, or just being too perfectly lit gives it away. And then we immediately go to like, oh, yeah, okay, that was like our first lazy reaction that I can skip my meetings. And then the next thing is like, okay, I think we just want transparent smart robots. Like I'm very obviously an AI voice assistant, And actually, because of that, I'm good at a lot of things that a human doesn't have the patience for or just too expensive to put their time towards. I think we'll dive into a bunch of these things. But I feel like, at least in our conversation, we are already there. We are not as excited about replacing really any substantial human roles, but it's data entry, data collection, things that we can bridge the gap. And actually, like in the case of Sona, the dental clinic assistant that we are launching, like one of the things that we are talking about is the role of the AI is to make sure the human to human connection actually happens. So no missed connections.
The other insight I'd throw in is like on your last point, Alan, the one thing that I feel is different is that in the past you needed a wake word, right? Like a hey Siri or a hey Alexa, and it was just too expensive for AI to be always on. So that's like a big shift. And speech recognition has been around for a long time. But if we look at it now, just as you say, it's like that all natural human interface and always on, and it's cost effective to do that, which is kind of telling us like this is a very unique moment in time today.
Cindy, before you move on, like if I can build on that, we got this team member, Tassiano, who's one of our venture builders and product leads. And when he came here, he was from Brazil. And we were talking about all these voice agents. And he was like, so who's calling these phone numbers? And it was like, everyone, like people call businesses. He's like, people call businesses? Like in Brazil, people just text businesses. Like this is weird. There was already a shift there. And then he got me to thinking like, are we building for a dead medium, guys? Like, is everything just going to go towards text?
Mm-hmm.
And then realize that there's a bigger thread here, that it's not about having a voice receptionist or a chatbot replacement. It's about creating this natural language interface with our company, right? Like, can you just talk to the company, not a person at the company, but kind of talk to like the company in a way, the same way you can talk to Chat GPT and the entire internet to get what you want out of that business. That to me feels like where we're headed with this. It's not about reception. It's not even about intake. It's about creating this voice layer to be able to interact with businesses. And
Yeah.
all these different verticals are going to have different ways of interacting.
Yeah, so the analogy that I think of when I hear that, like as this natural interface, and we were talking about UX, right? Like the internet was around for a long time, but it wasn't until Mark Andreessen, similarly ChatGPT, just capitalizing on the decades of research that already was going into LLMs. So I see this as, this is a natural way of doing business already, and it's here now in a way that allows us to connect with our customers.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the things also we were just like doing a little bit of checking our notes together before getting on this call was this, like one thing that, for example, has happened in the past decade is podcasts. And they're much better than radio because it's on my time, right? Or I get to listen to something while I drive or while I like fill the dishwasher. So I think that what Alan is saying in terms of talking to the company is like, yeah, like we have a layer that's now 24/7 on. It's time zone agnostic. It's not exhausted. It's not rude to call it at 11 p.m. because you just remembered I need to tell my lawyer something. Like we now all have this like maybe even the idea of like the note taker that we all love internally. Now we have an external note taker for the company that people can, call our inbox. And we've always had this with email, which was the whole thing of like, who came up with this to-do list that everyone can add something to my to-do list? Like this was the crazy thing about email. So now it's just becoming multimodal. Like you can call it, you can text it, you can email it, you can WhatsApp it, and it will WhatsApp, text, email, and call you back also. But at the right time, right place. Like one of the things we thought about is, well, convenience is time and medium related. For example, I should be able to call my dentist anytime I like and change my appointments. But if you want to remind me of my appointment, you should only text me. Don't call me because I'm more likely to miss it. And I think that's attention allocation idea that we're talking about is, okay, now we get to actually send this or like channel this attention through different channels at the right time. And it's asymmetric in the sense that for my legal case intake, the AI agent is cheap and has all the time in the world for me to rummage around and find my papers and get the reference number, it's totally fine. And I can hang up because I'm dropping off my kid and then call the same number, pick up the conversation, no apologies needed. And it's totally at my convenience. And that's the exciting part. Not mimicking humans and like actually taking advantage of the places where we don't have the same limitations is where it's exciting to build product.
And to build on that, there's a big focus on like, how could this make this business more efficient? Like, how many receptionists can we get fired in the next year, right? Like, that's the wrong metric. The right metric is, how can this be an even better experience, right? Like, how can we provide an even better experience for people? Obviously, I think there is an element of, well, there's might be less reception work to do, and like we've seen like time and time again that people move to different spaces, and receptionists were always doing things between the calls, and so those jobs aren't going to disappear. With that said, that's clearly the next target, right? Of if you've built this agent and you're sort of competing for that human labor, the next human labor you would probably want to compete for is other front office stuff. And so there is this element of like, guys, is this Easter Island? Are we chopping down all the trees? Are we just making ourselves all extinct here really, really quick? We don't know it? Or is there something else going on here? I'm not going to pretend to know and have the answer. I just know that there's really no stopping it. And we're going to start to see what happens soon.
There's no stopping it, but I think that's exactly where, like, if we don't imagine a better product future, it won't happen. Like, it just will. Look, we have to write the science fiction for the science to actually emerge. And I think it's pretty easy to look around. Like, doesn't healthcare suck? Doesn't coordination generally suck? Like, it just sucks because computers are bad at taking input, and we've created these keyboards that we have to do letters one by one. Like, it's hilarious, basically, like how low bandwidth computer human interface is. And to me, it's just like, okay, like it took us like 3 decades after personal computing for computers to speak English. That's just like basics, right? And now we get to everyone can talk to their computer, and we don't have these people who had to learn syntax and speak computer. So now we just get to talk to computers, and like we're just going to build stuff. And a lot of stuff can improve. Yeah.
You just think of how many tasks or moments in our life that are driven by voice and by conversation. And now with the capability that it has to read and understand emotion, I think that's really scary and like a very interesting development that is certainly like a chilling moment for me, which is that, okay, if the voice agent can now come in and do interviews, negotiations, therapy, all of these things, and be able to understand human emotions potentially even better than we might be able to, and be objective in the moment and learn through those interactions. Like this is like a technological wedge that is going to disrupt so many functions. So it's just a matter of, going after it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I think I disagree in a sense that, at least with LLMs, because inherently they will hallucinate, I will trust it less in the sense that if I told you like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to a guy, great, like he's such an expert, but 3% of the time he's just going to like totally bullshit. Like, do I really want to actually get involved with this therapist or this lawyer or whatever? Like, which 3% of the time? And that's the inherent like problem with LLMs. Like, you can't not hallucinate. So,
as opposed to with humans, you don't know what that percentage is depending on who you're talking to, right?
Yeah,
but there are better tells. There are better tells.
Can you guarantee that 3 is the peak? Okay, I'm in.
Exactly.
So, but there's a second part to that. Like, there's a 3%, but also I don't get to sue Claude or OpenAI. Like, under every chat window says, we are AI, we will make mistakes. So as long as the accountability is not there, you can't, right? But yes, I know if my therapist really messes up or my accountant messes up, they have they have a charter. OpenAI doesn't have a charter. And I think that's the gap that we are building businesses in. We're saying, hey, we're going to create guardrails for this likely to hallucinate AIs. We're going to take the responsibility. You can sue us. Somebody has to be sued, basically. And that's where you have a business, like when you have accountability.
To backtrack one step to, the natural language interface, like Pratha, you were talking about, like right now, a lot of software, like there's all these systems of record. Go into any business, like going to a dentist, there's Dentrix is, a system of record. Go into a lawyer's office, you've got Clio. Go into real estate, you've got like multifamily real estate. You've got I'm forgetting the name now. There's in any system, there's kind of like the big few players that provide kind of the massive piece of software that is the system of record or any business.
Right.
And that's their like primary piece of software. And those softwares are designed for humans to kind of use as business owners, right? And so to get at the pieces of the business that are, doing value at some point in time, you kind of have to go through a person, right? And what we're talking about is that layer of communications, which is like every customer and people inside the business. Let's not forget voice agents can be used inside of the business the same way you would,
Right.
talk to a receptionist and say, tell me about what does my day look like, right? Like,
Mhm.
has this person confirmed or canceled? Oh, why did they cancel? Did they say?
Yeah, or
Right?
just get
Like
my
things like
Slack
that.
download as I drive to work. Like, just like, hey, what's up? Like, what should I pay attention to?
Yeah, it's a like, especially generic voice agent, but specifically to these businesses, imagine the system of record stays the same. There's this interface in between the whole thing. And then there's a lot of other work in that layer, right? That's just not in the systems. I think that's where a lot of these like companies are going to go is okay, first we're allowing people to interact with the system of record without a person there. So it's like almost like a system of intelligence built on top of the system of record. Like it knows where everything is. It's like that glue person in the business who's just been there forever and kind of knows everything, and you go to them and you're going to be able to get an answer, or they know where everything is. It's like that's what this is, and the voice is just a part of that. It's just a way of interacting with them.
Yeah, I was seeing something which was like reflections over a Y Combinator batch. And I think like in the early days of this, about 25% of a YC batch during a period of time was considered voice agents. But then quickly after that, they weren't being described as voice companies at all. And I think that's the
Mhm.
shift here. Like, voice is really just the wedge. It's not the end product. And, I think like initially, while companies might have gone out to market saying that, we sell a voice AI agent, that kind of realization has sunk in, Alan, which is how do we operate across the workflow and become the operational infrastructure of the company and very quickly go from, yes, I'm the receptionist, but I'm also doing the scheduling, I'm doing the follow-ups, I'm doing the renewals and the collections. And I think from like a VC and investor lens, that's definitely what people are looking for in terms of like even when you're sizing up the market, it's like it's not how many calls are you replacing initially, yes, but to
Mhm.
start to look like, but that's getting commoditized. That is definitely going to be competed to death as the quality of the agents and the technology becomes accessible. So then it's like, yeah, your domain advantage and strength, but then your integration into the process.
So in terms of that integration, I think one other topic that I think you and Alan wanted to discuss is vertical versus horizontal. So Pratna, you were saying you're hearing that some even family offices that you would expect to be more kind of down for going deep integration like vertically, but you were hearing that not so much. What was that? And I think Alan's gonna Alan's gonna defend vertical integration all the way.
Yeah, I would love to hear that from Alan. And I think the argument's really strong. This, as I reflected more on it, there was, a group of, this is not, I'm not commenting on behalf of investors or anything, but this was one particular study of 400 family offices. And I think that where they were coming from is basically family offices, they generally have like an investment approach, which is about portfolio diversification and optimizing risk and upside across all their asset classes, right? And so when they're thinking about their investment in AI, I think that, to my surprise, because we are so, deep in a particular approach that's predictable and known to generate good returns when it comes to venture scale. Um, I think, if you're not actively operating in the business, I could see how certain investors could chase the horizontal plays and the infrastructure plays when it comes to, let's say, the models themselves, if they get access to it, and many of them do, the large language models, as well as infrastructure, as well as energy, as well as data centers. So I saw a lot of allocation going there. And then the idea behind why they wouldn't want to play on the vertical side is this fear around, well, this is, you know, agents are, it's going to be like your software market where you have a bunch of companies, fighting to the death. And you're going to see the 1 in 10 kind of outcome in terms of who will succeed or not. So they just felt like the risk profile hadn't really gotten any better for them. And so, yeah, that was the argument there.
Yeah, I hear it. Internally for us, so like the position that we're taking, like follow this thought experiment for a minute. You're building a horizontal agent, and so you're working across, uh, you're building a general voice agent that's answering phone calls somehow. And you need to service all these different verticals. And each one of these verticals is a little bit different. Hopefully you narrow in on those features that are, common to all of them, and you build a, horizontal software. And then you start making, exceptions and use cases, and you make, one or two for each one of them. Um, I was on the phone with a founder the other day, and we were talking about treasury management software, which is something I don't know anything about. And we were looking at a particular market. We were looking at real estate. And I was like, why wouldn't these real estate guys just buy like one of the treasury management software out there? It's like, well, because real estate only has a few treasury management problems. The rest of the world, or the rest of the software, solves everybody's problems. So it feels like you're buying way too much, and you have to like look around all
Mhm.
of that stuff. So that's problem number one. They just took 12 steps uh, in 12 different directions, right? Which allowed them to, sell to that whole, horizontal market. It's literally, the top part of the T. Whereas if you were to just pick one, so let's say, okay, well, let's just build only the features required for treasury management. Are we going to be able to build a better product that's going to be able to outcompete the vertical or outcompete the horizontal one if we're only selling to the vertical? Like, of course, right? Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, there's no way that you can't build the better product if you're even funded 25%, right? Like, a very small amount, because by the time you get to the third or fourth feature down of those like 12 steps that they go out, if you go 3 or 4 down, you're already so much better that there's no reason for someone not to buy you. And then that's just on the product side, right? When it comes to, go to market, is like now you've got a very defined, you know, classic kind of SaaS go to market with a specific customer who you can speak to their pain. And when you speak to a customer's pain so clearly that you show them that they understand it, they kind of automatically assume that you have the answer to their problem, right?
Mhm.
So being able to speak to a very specific pain also allows you to cut through the noise, right? Like you
Right.
don't just have to speak to a general job to be done. You can speak to a specific avatar. You can just think about any marketing. Who are you calling out at the beginning? Like that's the first 5 seconds of every marketing is, calling all coaches and consultants, calling all dentists, calling all multifamily real estate property management firms, right? Like that's super niche. Like if I'm a multifamily management, I can't even say it out loud because I'm not that. But imagine I would be like, oh yeah, that's me. Nobody ever like calls me out. Like these people must have something to say. This is like very specific, right? So
There's also
for
something.
me,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll finish the point of just that, for me, this idea of there's so many benefits to going more vertical that I never really used to believe in. But the longer I look at the problem, the more it makes sense. And there's also
Mhm.
aspects about the amount of like money that you need to put in to grow the company, which is kind of more
Yeah.
from an investment side. There's also the type of skill that you need to be good at. It's a different kind of customer acquisition when you're going more horizontal,
Yeah.
and it's more of a marketing driven approach rather than a sales and hunting driven approach. And that's just not what we build here anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know I made the argument for the other side, but I'll argue this side. Um, the other kind of interesting data point, and I think we saw this even if you're not just talking about voice agents, but let's talk about voice. So in voice specifically, so much money has gone to these well-known firms like DeepGram or 11 Labs or Whisper, right? And so if somebody were to go in and invest in those companies, you're getting in at Series D, Series E type valuations. And I think yeah, as an investor, the opportunity on the vertical side is really just taking off now. It's quite immature in comparison, and there's only like a lot of the money has initially gone to healthcare applications and insurance and financial services, and we can talk later about why. But there is still a lot to be competed and a lot of money to be made and value to be created.
Mhm. I'll make a quick comment on this, and I feel like from a product perspective, I feel more secure building vertical because what I'm building for is those conventional things that are counterintuitive. For example, we do this thing in a particular way at this dental office because the insurance company does this or that, or we do intake in this way in our legal firm because we know down the line this question. Like these are the kind of insight layers that if you have them built in, it's one very powerful. Like it's a lot of confidence for your product, but also you need to spend time inside that problem space to get them. And you really, I think, if you spread yourself thin, both from a marketing perspective, like Alan was saying, but also from a product experience, do you want your product to be a new hire that used to work in another industry, or do you want your product to be a like industry veteran that comes from this other firm and knows all the tips and tricks and like, oh, this person knows the playbook, like go do it. I feel like that is a very sticky employee and that's a very sticky product. So it's very interesting to build there.
And
Yeah, I
even if
love
you
your
buy into the thesis that in the future, all software is going to be so malleable that even if it's horizontal, you could just make it vertical for yourself. It's like, yeah, well, I still have to do it. Like, can you
Right.
guys just do that for me? All right.
And
Like
I
this,
think
I don't know how to, like, I don't
we
want
are
to
in
be
a
doing
bubble.
that.
Like we are in a bubble of people who build products. Like most people don't build products. It takes, it has
Mm-mm.
taken practice for us to get here. So when I sometimes sit with someone and they're like, oh, I have this problem in my, my uh, construction consulting firm. And we've had the same problem for 5 years. And I'm like, and I'm waiting for them to say, and we solved them. Like, no, and it just pisses us off every single day. I'm like, okay, let's do a weekend project together on Replit and do it. But that muscle is not like, at the
I
end of the
totally
day,
agree.
yeah, like the iPhone did not make everyone a photographer. Everyone's taking photos, but it's two entirely different skills. Like we are
Yes.
not having these amazing documentaries coming out because everybody has a camera now. Like that
Yeah.
skill is, and that it's not even just skill, it's interest. Like I am interested in taking a problem and building it into a product. Someone is interested in doing this other thing, and these interests are not necessarily overlapping just because you have the problem.
Yeah, like a simple example of that is when people were talking about AI agents a lot last year and the year before. Um, I heard from so many different people that I want to build an agent for this, I want to build an agent for that. And the percentage of people that actually did it is very tiny. So I think that applies at a consumer level, that applies at an enterprise level, at a small business level, at an investor level. Those that are like, serious maximalists and have the skill set are the ones that'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah, but outside of the skill set, it's also, as Behrouz said, about finding the specific insight. And I feel like it ties really closely to what you said before about integration and integrating with the workflow specifically. Actually, there was an MIT findings recently that like 95% or something of generative AI pilot fails. And the top problem was that everyone's trying so hard to do surface level solutions. And the 5% who actually won are those deep integrations of workflow.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the habits like we always revert to our muscle memory and habits when stress is high and I need to deliver something like, not today. I'm not going to learn something or I'm not going to like log into the thing again.
Hmm.
I'm just going to stick to what works. I think it's not easy, but like finally, if you get there, like then you stick around.
And this is a kind of, I think, I'll let out this little secret that we've been using that's been really helpful for us, where it, it won't matter forever, but I'll give it to the people who took the time to join on this call, which is customers don't really want to buy AI. They just want to buy solutions to problems. It's like business process outsourcing exists because people want to outsource their business processes rather than develop business processes and run business processes. It's like, wait, I could just take these dollars and get that thing done as opposed to create this entire system and staff it and do all these things. If the
Yeah.
promise was, oh, okay, well, no, now you just buy this agent and then you tell it everything to do and you do it, it's like, well, could I just pay you to do it? Right? Like, could you guys just do that for me? Like, that's what people want. That it's less about selling the AI so much as selling the idea that we're almost like an MSP, like a managed service provider for
Yeah.
AI staff or an AI staffing agency.
We are
And then
all the
saying,
new IT people again. We're like, yeah, I'm IT. What's your problem? I'll wire things up together. Like, don't worry about it.
just you know what? You don't want to like manage staff? Don't worry. You don't want to manage AI staff? Don't worry. We got like both of those for you. Just tell us what the outcome you're looking for is, and we're going to figure out how to develop that for you. And that's a very fundamentally different sell than saying, you know what, you should buy this AI agent and software and figure out how to use it and integrate it into your business and teach it how to do all the stuff, right? As opposed to, hey, is this the thing you want done? Let me help you get it done. And you know what the secret is? Like, I'm using a ton of arbitrage in terms of time with the AI that we're using to do the work for you, and that's what you're really paying for. And it's going to be cheaper than some other business process outsourcing that was previously developed for this because there's less humans involved, right? Like, it's the same thing when you buy access to a call center. It's the same thing as buying access to an agent to answer your calls. It's just sorry, it's not exactly the same, but I mean, it's the same from a buyer's perspective in terms of me getting rid of this problem and just getting
Yeah.
the outcome into my
Mhm.
business.
Actually, on that, I was just I thought of this thing that I had read where call centers are gonna become the best AI arbitrage hubs. So already, they're doing what you just said they do, which is like labor arbitrage. But when they're able to leverage AI and this and BPOs, um, that I think that'll be interesting as to what happens with the labor workforce that's currently employed by call centers. I think initially there's a period of time where you're leveraging both. But I mean, this is the belief, this is the hypothesis, right? That the human labor gets shifted to work that's more meaningful, fulfilling, and creative, as the cost of reasoning keeps reducing. So yeah, very curious about that one.
Maybe Alan, talk to me about some of those, like the industries that you've explored and worked at. What outcome were the business owners looking for? How are they kind of thinking of that labor, shifting them towards more higher priority items?
So right now, it depends on who you talk to in the business, right? So if you're talking to the receptionist, the sale and the conversation is more around, hey, we're giving you a team, right? Like, when you're meeting with someone in the office and the phone's ringing and you don't want to just say, oh, hey, hold on a second, and then like answer the phone, right? Like, that's not cool. You don't want to do that, do you? And they're like, no, I want to make it to make people feel good. And that's what receptionists do. It's like, that's a like, kind of like different direction of when you're on lunch, when you're talking with someone in person, when you're meeting with the doctor or the dentist or the business owner, we'll answer the phone. When it's after hours, we'll answer the phone, right? Like, that's kind of we'll give you a team to be able to help support you. And their sense is all those things that I do when I really like show up for people, that's where I'm going to be able to add value again. Then this on the business owner side, right now it's more like if you hired a receptionist, there's a good chance they're doing a whole bunch of things in between answering calls. It's not like they're just like have their hands and they go and like they sit on their hands and wait for the phone to ring. There's a bunch of other jobs that they have to do. So as a business owner, you can look at those other jobs and say, hey, wait a minute, these things aren't getting done to the degree I want right now because I got the receptionist on this. can these things get done now? What business value would that have to me? Is that greater than the cost that I'd be spending on the AI receptionist? And you're telling me that the receptionist could, my existing receptionist could escalate towards that? That's the other viewpoint. I don't think very many business owners are thinking about like 2 or 3 steps down the line when we get to a situation where all the calls are being answered, by AI, and everybody saved that money. Let's just say it's, in a small business, you just added 50K EBITDA. Are they all going to take, like every business owner, are they just going to take that 50K for themselves and be like, that was great. Less people work for me and now I have more money and the service level's the same? Or are market forces and maybe 1 or 2 visionary people going to come up with new ways of providing value with that extra 50K and probably spending it on people, before AI, because these are new things, not
I think it's
systems that we're
even
replicating.
Yeah, it's not even just that 50K, like the time that you free up, the attention that you free up. I think it's the attention that you free up, right? Not even just time. Like I can have 2 tired hours in the afternoon freed up, or I can have 2 fresh hours freed up. Like those are very different things in a business. Like if I can learn new software, I can like set up a process, I can organize something. Like these are the things that are step changes in a business or in an operation. Let's even call it like a
Mm.
dental office or something like that. And I feel like that's again where our imagination time to catch up really. Like, what does it really mean for all data entry layer to just kind of be taken care of? If somebody makes sure calls don't get dropped and appointments don't get missed and all that stuff, like what should a dental office really feel like? Like, could it be
Yeah.
a lot more interesting than what it is now? Like, what are the other services we should be giving there? We should be talking about sleep apnea. We should be talking about like all these other things that dentists are short on bandwidth to really have those conversations. Like that's one of the things actually, as we've been looking around for like our pilot partners for some of these voice projects, is that most people are just treading water, right? Like a dermatology office that is just like all of their bandwidth is going into like scheduling because they're so
Mm.
limited in the dermatologist's time itself. Or a dental office, like their whole attention is like no missed times. Like the dental chair should not be empty because that's the moneymaker in this business. That's the one place we make money. So if we were to like actually optimize all that, and I think to your point, like I talked to a German person, you talked to Tassiano, like you call these businesses, like isn't that like really inefficient to call for an appointment? I think that also is gonna eventually we're gonna move away from all that. And the most interesting feedback I got when I was doing interviews for the dental side was with just regular like patients. And they were like, no, no, no. Yes, I want to schedule my appointment, but I still want to be able to call someone because I need to advocate for myself. At my dental studio, at a dental clinic, my husband is a new patient. They give him appointments right and left. I've been with them for 10 years and they kind of know I'm not going anywhere. So my appointments are always like 3 weeks after my husband. So I called them out on it. So I think that's the layer that if the mechanical part of just like get an appointment is done, then the receptionist is free to like listen to you and be like, oh, okay, so this is an emergency or whatever. There's a lot more to improve on top. And I think that's the attention layer that we can free up. And I think people like it. Like when you tell them this is what you could do for your business, if they've been in that business, they know this brings retention. They know the moment someone feels heard and taken care of, they don't leave your practice, right? They want to go back to the same dental practice or anyone that they really, or the same spa. Like you know that you will get you want to know that you will get the attention. So I think allocating attention at the highest level and allowing people to experience it is kind of the next layer that we have not freed up.
Mhm. So we've been hearing this really great specific insight that you guys have experienced in dental and legal, and you've explored a dozen of other markets and industries and ideas. How do you separate this sort of sticky insight versus what might be just interesting technology?
Mm. You're saying what is the insights that are agnostic from specific practices like dental, legal, or the like home services that you're looking at?
Maybe even how did you even gain those insights? What was the process you had to go through to be at a place where
Mm.
you're like, this is it. This
Mm.
is the venture we're gonna build.
Okay, that I can speak more to. So with voice, There's other people out there who've been thinking about this too. And like I said, if I give permission people to go into another browser tab and look up the voice market map, there's so many companies and so many industries that are being affected by this. Now, if you run, I don't know, like a business that has no phone number and you don't talk to anybody, this is going to be less relevant. So we're not focused on those businesses, right? Like that's not, where we're starting. Things will eventually get to them. If you get a lot of phone calls, but it's not really a pain point, it's going to be less interesting. If you get a lot of phone calls and there's a high volume and the value of each call is very important, then this is going to be an interesting point. So we've been looking at it very systematically in terms of like, if you were to start to target and say, who are the people who feel this pain the most today, who have the most to gain from this technology first, and then fit the rest of our kind of market dynamics that we look for. It's not an enterprise customer. Usually we wouldn't say very small business, like customers of one, but for example, take like a single lawyer, right? Like a solo person law firm. They get phone calls, people saying, "Hey, I've been in this accident. Can you help me out with this?" Or, "Hey, do you do divorce law?" It's like, "No, I don't do divorce law," right? They've got to answer every one of those calls to actually be able to get revenue. And most of them don't outsource it and they still do it themselves. They hate it. And every time that they're in court or they're with another client, which is how they want to spend their time, as practitioners of law, they want to be practicing law, not being a receptionist. Normally we would say never do very small business, but there's actually tons of VSMB who feel this pain very acutely and have plenty of budget akin to budgets that are way higher than you would expect for this problem, due to the fact that we're not really selling software so much as we're selling like human labor way cheaper and more, like they're never going to buy a call center, right? But they could buy something like this. So sorry, Cindy, if I'm like kind of like walking around this a little bit, but working backwards from, well, what is every industry out there? Who gets a lot of phone calls? Who feels the pain the most? Who has the budget? Who feels like they're underserved and can't use one of the existing horizontal tools? And then who are the ones that we could isolate and build a specific niche product around and connect into a system of record that already exists, by just building the system of intelligence on top of. So that's part of it is analysis. And the second is actually talking to those people and seeing what their real life experience is. And secret, somewhere in between those two is, hey, ChatGPT, give me a day in the life of this person, so that when you get on the phone with them, at least you know a little bit about what their life is like.
And just like taking what Alan said to a macro level as to how kind of the partnership here has looked at different sectors. What Alan said is at the start of the process is initially doing an entire scan of all the universe of industries out there and what dynamics exist in those markets, and us crafting basically a thesis around how we believe agents can disrupt workflows. And when I look at 6 months worth of screening and selection and assessment that we've done, it's interesting to see, the majority of our selections have been in these areas where there's where things are rules based, things are script based, things are there's just like consistency required that agents can do sometimes more than humans. And I've seen, like, I actually saw that basically our group had a high percentage vote in financial services, and real estate, and the legal space, which is consistent with generally sort of where the dollars are flowing as well. So that was kind of interesting to see where, our natural intuitive assessment of where the opportunities are where we're building and where the dollars are flowing.
Mm-hmm. And maybe I'll just make a point. This is looking back at our notes, because one of the questions was like, how do we think about, like, if we even listen back to our conversation, we are not really excited about voice. We're excited about voice as a layer, but we are saying in the next 12 to 18 months, voice still is a frontier. So if you're looking at the wedge to get to revenue, it's a good place to provide that attention, right? And I think it will probably, if next year we call those 100 lawyers, it's going to be maybe 20 out of 100 have an agent, right? And I think the experience also, like the consumer experience is there now with my iPhone. If somebody calls me a random number, iPhone picks it up, asks like, hey, you're an unknown
Yeah.
number. Can you please? So we are all actually, it's becoming polite, right? Because Apple did it, so it's fine. So I think it's going to be like a
Thanks,
quick
Apple.
shift. Thanks, Apple. And like, I feel great that I can see on the corner of my screen that like somebody is like
Yeah.
answering Apple patiently. This is what I want to talk about. And I immediately pick it up if it's relevant. So this is going to become normal, right? The normalcy is like happening really fast.
Yeah. Like Alan talked about 2 out of 100 cold calls. I have calls with founders as well who've just attached agents to their phone. Just kind of saying, here's my personal assistant. And so tell me why you're calling me.
This also goes back to that choice and control layer. Like if I call my telco or my bank and they put me under like legacy voice, like it's just, I know it's a tree structure. I'm just answering yes, no questions. I have no choice because all telcos and banks are doing it. I don't feel good about it. I just do it anyways. If I call my med spa, they can do the same thing to me because now I'm going to go pay like, $5,000 for my Botox. So now it's about luxury, it's about choice, it's about experience. And then that becomes the point that instead of that, maybe actually the receptionist should pick up the phone and say, hey, sorry, I'm really slammed right now. I can call you back. But if you don't mind, I can put up, I don't know, Alex, our voice AI. It will take your case and like what you need, and I'll call you back with an appointment slot. Like there is these augmented experiences that actually is about control, choice, convenience, and feels entirely different because we presented it to you nicely, not just like, just AI picks up the phone, whatever, you have no choice.
Yes. Maybe rapid fire quick questions. What are you guys building right now?
It's kind of a secret, Cindy. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it, but okay. No, we're working in several industries where there's voice. We're working in debt collection. We're working in freight. We're working in legal. We're working in home services. We're working in dental and health services. We're hoping to move into professional services at some point in time. Not there yet, but any founders who are excited about servicing that market, we can talk. What am I missing? Oh, we've got ed tech as a market with voice attached to it. Those are some examples of some of the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
Real estate, asset management, elder care, and we're definitely excited
totally
about freight and logistics. That's like there's so much money to be made there. It's with just gajillions is the word I'll use in terms of inefficiencies.
A bajillion cajillion, I believe, is the exact dollar amount I saw from the analysts. But okay.
And that's one of the benefits of working with FutureSight. We are very scientific about our
a billion cajillion, yeah.
Yeah, but I think maybe let's just go to that piece because I think we wanted to cover that a bit. And I'm newer to the studio, so I'll just take that like as a fresh set of eyes. Like what I see in the FutureSight is very much this, like excited about the ideas and opportunities. And I think we built some muscle around meritocracy when it comes to like the best ideas winning, and just like we have to convince each other. And that's one of the things I've liked that, for example, we have the investment committee. So our own ideas have to graduate by convincing with a founder that comes in, convincing now the committee to actually release the fund. And I think we have some interesting gates built in. And a lot of times in our conversations, we are trying to convince each other, which I feel like is the right mode, kind of where we are and what we're building in like very early stage startups.
I like one of the questions there about public sector, public services. This is interesting. Like there's been recent fundings in like 911 operator type applications. And like you think of all the pain that we go through with DMVs and so on, but we've had, and the CRA, right? But we've had some experience and some learnings and scars from trying to approach the public sector and government market that we can always do a deep dive on. But I think we hope someone solves it for sure.
It's a tougher market to sell into, right? Like there's statistically, it grows less than most other markets. Statistically, the cycle time in terms of sales is much longer than other markets. which make it much less attractive than some of these other spaces. However, as a citizen, do I wish that somebody builds this stuff? Hell yeah. Is it going to be me? I don't know. We got some other things, and we got investors who want to make more money. So I don't know if we're going to be aiming at those in the short term.
Alan, maybe if you can speak a little to what does co-creation with FutureSight look like? I think that's something that a lot of people I've talked to are curious, like what does it actually look like on the ground if you are an EIR and like thinking about year one experience, what is that?
I think that the founder needs to trust us a lot at the beginning, and we need to trust them a lot later on. And so in the early stages, I'm going to be much more prescriptive about like, let's do these things because we do these things all the time and these things tend to work out. And I have a high degree of confidence around that. Confidence is if you've done something multiple times, like if I take this and I drop it, I know what's going to happen. We've gone through these reps over and over. So I'm very confident in if we try this, we'll probably, get this outcome. So we're very serious about doing specific things, early. And as the company grows, it becomes the founder's company to sort of work with. Now, with that said, the founder is, always there, especially in the beginning stages, as, the, I would say, maybe they're like rowing the boat and we're like steering more at the beginning. I'm looking for a new metaphor for this. I've used other ones in the past, but that's a big part of it. But it's like collaborating with any like co-founder, right? Except for it's a few people rather than one. There's people who are better at coding, and there's people who are better at strategy, and there's people who are better at research, and there's people who are better at marketing than one person would be or one co-founder would be, unless you're able to attract that unicorn co-founder, which I've never been able to do personally, right? So like I think there's something special about being able to get a little bit of the best of everything across a group rather than be limited to one person. So it's optimal in traits. It's different.
Yeah. There's another question I think in the chat, like what makes it better to build with FutureSight than alone? And I think it's not about FutureSight, it's like with any group like us. What I feel is we need these conversations to form opinions as people because the AI is the AI and whatever, but there is culture, there's politics, there is this kind of readiness. We tend to put ourselves through these tools and experience them ourselves. We try to work with the same, like dog food our own stuff and like call the same AI agent that we just built, like the whole studio just picks up the phone and calls it. It does push us confidently, I can say 6 months into the future. So if you're wondering like if to build alone or build with kind of a studio setup like this, if you can have a sounding board group of people who are spending at least a day of their week really learning, yeah, you're in a good position. Like that's a quality that you're looking for. And I think that's a quality FutureSight has cultivated. So that's the benefit of it, I feel, compared to solo.
I'm going to draw a harder line here, which is that if you're asking the question of what the benefits of building with a team are versus building alone, it's not for you, right? Like you should already know that you don't want to be doing this alone. If you're considering like, yeah, I could do this alone, I'd be fine with it. You probably are. And like, don't worry about, bringing in a co-founder and like giving up a chunk of equity and not getting control over everything. Those are probably not things that you're interested in. So this is the value is for people who have potentially tried that and didn't like it, or the people who feel like, you know what, I'm not even interested in trying that. If you're interested in having that discussion, you probably already know what you're looking for. And then the question would be, okay, get specific about what you're looking for, and we could talk about if that's what we offer, or if there's a different vehicle from doing it alone to compare to that would be a better vehicle than the venture studio.
For sure. I'm looking at this really fascinating discussion happening in chat about demos. And how on one perspective, it's like booking a demo will no longer exist. But on another perspective, it's like building the demo is the easiest it's ever been.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's our thoughts on that? And maybe like what's our thoughts about demos versus like, is it going to be harder to scale?
So I have thoughts about this from so many angles. Let's just extend like 2 more hours, please, for me to get my thoughts out. Two very quick thoughts. One, from a user experience, a sales demo is very powerful. You can ask the customer, what are the few things that you're struggling with? And then you can point them to the things in the software that solve those problems. So then they can make an informed decision on, like, is this going to do what I want it to do, and not get lost in the interface. Software is two products. It's the product that gets the results, and then all of the things around it that get people into that. And if that thing around it, if you just let them try to interface with it and see if it gets the results, chances are there's so many things that can go wrong. Like, they're walking a tightrope and like kind of walking around in a maze to try to find the value if it's there. Whereas if you give a demo, you can clearly direct people towards it. Is this a great case for a voice agent to be giving out demos with lower sales pressure? Maybe, right? That could be a thing. And then the second is around speed to deliver something. I am so excited about our ability to try things out with software. The amount we used to have to spend to experience an interface idea and a essentially value proposition of a software was astronomical compared to what it is
Yeah.
today. And what that offers is the ability to do more and more repetitions and iterations, which leads to better and better products over time. It's not just about the first iteration being cheaper. We get huge value from that. It's about being able to do more and more iterations to get to a better and better result.
Yeah, I think there's a mental shift we all need to make there. Like, you actually still need to spend close to the same amount of time to get to the higher quality product. Like, don't get fooled by the fact that now with 1/10 of the time and cost you get to a demo. Okay, everybody gets there.
Yeah.
You still need to actually go the other 10 hours. And we've seen it in our internal kind of demos as well, that some of our websites or some of our kind of marketing websites we are putting together look way different than the others. Well, because it's lived in, it's actually, we spent time in it. So the excitement of getting to something that used to take a month in a weekend, we just need to get over it really fast. And, demos are, the MVP is so quick that the real challenge is now go to market. Like, that's the exciting part.
Yes. Well, this is the end of the call presentation. Really, I want you guys, each of you, to end with one sentence each. What's the thing that you're most excited to see science fiction becoming reality in the next 10 years? Start with you, Behrouz.
I think I'll stick with my techno optimism kind of theme. Is we have gotten used to broken things, and there's so many broken things. Like, almost everything is a side effect of limited technology, and we just need to step back and go back to like Xerox PARC mindset and early Apple mindset, and be like, okay, let's just build from the ground up. Like, what would I build if everything is essentially free to build? What should the experience be?
Very nice. Pratna?
I can go next. I think the guiding principle to win is still pivot, iterate, learn quickly, and move. Everything else is you're in the arena and you got to fight with your competition, but you got to make sure you do these things.
Alan?
Guys, it's just like somebody said it in the chat that, we're living in the singularity here. I don't even know what's going to happen. Like, in the very short term, the fact that it's just getting easier to do everything with computers, where, it like a while ago it wasn't. And it's just every week, there's new stuff happening that just makes it so much easier to get things done, essentially. Like, we're all just trying to get things done and make visions come to reality and find an outcome. And it looks like the outcome is always going to be a shorter line than it was, some years ago. And that, it's just getting compressed and compressed and compressed until, we're in the future and we just snap our fingers and everything happens. Like, you can almost imagine it happening. So yeah, those are mine.
Well, thank you so much, Behrouz, Pratna, and Alan, for coming here and telling us the insights you've gotten over this several years of building, investing in Voice AI. And thank you, everyone, for coming in and listening in. And we hope you take away some really exciting insights from this call, whether that be for your current venture or your next venture. And see you again in the next event.